Prisons are built with one clear purpose: to separate danger from the rest of the world. Tall walls, heavy doors, locked gates, all meant to ensure that the most violent people never again hurt innocent lives. That is what society expects. That is what the public demands. But sometimes, reality does not follow the plan. Body. In rare and chilling cases, the most infamous criminals in history did not just spend their sentences in isolation. Instead, they ended up in the same prison, under the same roof. Often within sight or sound of one another, they walked the same yards, breathed the same air, and experienced long days in confinement together. What makes these stories unsettling is not just the crimes they committed, but the quiet, human moments that happen behind bars. Interactions that were never meant to occur. The connections that historians and criminologists still study to this day. Our first story takes us to California, where two of the state's most notorious killers shared space in the same medical prison. Edmund Kemper, known as the co-ed killer, was a towering figure with an unusually high IQ. As a teenager, he murdered his grandparents and was institutionalized. Released at age 21, he went on to commit a brutal crime spree, killing young women and eventually his own mother. After turning himself in, Kemper was convicted and sent to prison, where he became known as a calm, articulate inmate who participated in educational programs and even read for the blind. In the same prison hospital, another murderer was serving his own life sentence. Herbert Mullen. And Mullen was driven by a delusion. He believed that killing people would stop earthquakes in California. His crimes seemed meaningless to the outside world, the product of a deeply disturbed mind. Both Kemper and Mullen ended up in the California Medical Facility in Vacaville, a place designed to hold mentally ill offenders. While there is no record of friendship or partnership between them, their interactions were disturbing simply for what they reveal. Mullen was talkative and unpredictable, often disruptive to others. Kemper, ever observant, found a way to control his behavior. According to accounts, Kemper once used simple rewards like peanuts to quiet him and water to punish noise and chatter. It was not therapy, it was dominance. Two killers, close enough to influence each other, in a place meant for healing and isolation. When across the globe in the United Kingdom, two more notorious criminals spent time in confinement close enough that their paths crossed, sometimes over a game of chess. Ian Brady, one of the Moore's murderers, was responsible for the tragic deaths of 5 children in the 1960s. Brady's crimes were calculated and cold, leaving a legacy that haunted British society for decades. He was moved through several high-security prisons and eventually placed under psychiatric care. In another wing was Graham Young, a serial poisoner who began killing as a teenager. Young's fascination with toxins led him to murder family members and co-workers, slowly and methodically. His knowledge of chemicals and dosages was chilling, and his actions exposed weaknesses in mental health systems of the time. While at Park Lane Hospital, later renamed Ashworth Hospital, Brady and Young reportedly played chess and talked. Their conversations ranged from criminal methodology to shared interests in dark topics like Nazism and violence. It was not friendship, it was curiosity. Two brilliant, broken minds studying each other across a board with black and white squares, each move another window into a dangerous psyche. In Canada, a different kind of connection formed in prison between Jean-Paul Gerbe and La Homolka. Homolka is known internationally for her role in the horrific murders she committed with her husband Paul Bernardo in the early 1990s. The case shocked the country and sparked debates about plea deals and accountability. Homolka served 12 years in prison under a controversial agreement that allowed her to testify against Bernardo. Gerbet, a French national serving a life sentence for murder, crossed paths with Homolka at Sainte-Anne-de-Plaine Penitentiary in Quebec. Gerbe volunteered in the prison library, a role that gave him access to other inmates. Homolka and Gerbe corresponded and developed a relationship that drew attention from authorities. They reportedly exchanged letters and even shared a kiss, a moment that raised alarm among prison psychologists who noted Homolka's vulnerability in emotional relationships. Their interaction did not lead to criminal activity beyond prison, but it became a symbol of how dangerous personalities can still form bonds behind bars. Even in confinement, human behavior, attachment, influence, fascination can persist in unexpected ways. In the United States, at New York's famous Sing Sing prison, another unlikely connection took shape between two very different killers. David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, terrorized New York City in the mid-1970s, killing 6 people and injuring 7 with a .44 caliber revolver. His capture ended a months-long nightmare, and Berkowitz was sentenced to 25 years to life. Also at Sing Sing was Gary Charles Evans, a convicted murderer and thief with a long history of crime and escape attempts. Evans had a turbulent life marked by violence, theft, and a penchant for manipulation. When the two met behind bars, their relationship became strange and unsettling. They reportedly lifted weights together and exchanged letters, even after being moved to the Clinton Correctional Facility. Some accounts describe flirtatious and personal language in their correspondence, revealing an unusual connection between two men whose crimes were very different, but whose lives intersected in confinement. Evans eventually died in 1998 attempting to escape custody, while Berkowitz continues to serve his sentence. Their time together shows how prison walls do not always limit interaction, even among the most notorious inmates. Back in California, another infamous figure, Charles Manson, found himself in close proximity to Edmund Kemper, the very killer we met earlier. Manson, the leader of a cult responsible for the brutal Tate LaBianca murders in 1969, spent decades in prison refusing rehabilitation and praising chaos. Kemper, by contrast, was calm, cooperative, and often intellectual, a model prisoner compared to the chaotic Manson. Their coexistence at the California medical facility was not a friendship. It was two notorious criminals occupying the same space, observing each other from afar, and reminding the world that prison can bring together enemies, legends, and monstrous minds. Florida State Prison, known as Rayford, tells another tale. Ted Bundy, one of the most infamous American serial killers, was housed there alongside other violent men. Bundy murdered dozens of women across multiple states in the 1970s, and his charm and intelligence only made his crimes more haunting. At Rayford, Bundy crossed paths with Gerald Stano, a killer convicted of killing at least 22 women, and Otis Toole, known for violent crimes with partner Henry Lee Lucas. While their interactions were limited, the fact that these men were held in the same facility shows how high-security prisons sometimes become theaters of dark coincidence. Elsewhere in the world, some of the most terrifying terrorists ever known to modern history found themselves confined under heavy guard. Timothy McVeigh, responsible for the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber who sent deadly bombs through the mail in the U.S., and Ramzi Youssef, the architect of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, all ended up in the maximum security system. These men were driven not by personal pathology alone, but by extremist beliefs and ideologies that led to mass destruction. In prison, they were held under strict isolation, deprived of contact with the world, yet still linked by the extreme violence of their actions and the shared reality of confinement. Finally, some of the world's most notorious serial killers, John Wayne Gacy, Dennis Nielsen, and Peter Sutcliffe, remain etched in history for the brutality of their crimes. Gacy, the killer clown who buried victims under his house in Illinois. Nielsen, the British killer whose crimes were discovered only after bodies blocked drains in his apartment. And Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper who murdered women in northern England. These men never served time together, but their shocking cases remind us how dangerous monsters can hide in plain sight. What connects all these stories is not just violence, but the strange fact that prison, a place meant to isolate and separate, sometimes brings infamous criminals together. Whether through shared space, casual interaction, or silent observation, these notorious figures remind us that behind concrete walls and barbed wire, human psychology still unfolds in complex and sometimes disturbing ways. Even in captivity, history's darkest minds can touch each other's lives, leaving behind questions that continue to fascinate and unsettle us all.